I totally get it. I totally get it. All right, we got the number one. Who's number one for you, DJ?
Number one for me was Eddie Murphy for a variety of reasons. And I saying Eddie Murphy was influenced by Richard Pryor is like saying that Hulk Hogan was influenced by God, his name just fell right out of my head. Rob, help me out.
Martino?
No,
Superstar
Billy Graham.
Okay, right.
It's he borrowed heavily from Richard Pryor, let's say. But when I first really started to dig into comedy after I was allowed to watch more adult humor, Eddie Murphy Raw and Eddie Murphy Delirious were on a constant loop in my VCR for months, if not years. And then even decades later, I would go back and watch them again, just because Eddie was so genuinely funny and just had a genuine persona about him that while it was very derivative, it was still very much his own. And, he turned that into a brilliant movie career. It's obviously he's fallen out, here recently. Where I really became a fan of his was when I finally went back years later and watched a VHS DVD of his work on Saturday Night Live, because I missed his entire Saturday Night Live run.
Oh, he saved the show. He literally saved the show.
Sure did.
He did during that time period, but I had seen none of that until years later. And then I watched it. I'm like, holy crap, this is brilliant. This is good stuff, that he was a part of. So yeah, that's the biggest reason why Eddie Murphy landed at number one. But like I said, I had a hard time with 1 through 3 because I could very easily slot Kinison or Pryor in the number one slot. And if you ask me again, like we said, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm with you. Rob, who's number one for you?
Eddie Murphy. And look, I look at it this way. Richard Pryor is Dr. J, Eddie Murphy, Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Even the time, even the kind of the times line up, right? Because Pryor was big 70s, early 80s, and then, just like Dr. J, and then Murphy and Michael Jordan blew up around the same time.
Yeah.
Like I said, Murphy saved Saturday Night Live. He was like 18, 19 years old, by the way, when he got on Saturday Night Live. And he saved the show.
Yeah, no question.
And so I'm looking this up now, but before he turned 29 years old, this is what everything did before 29 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Delirious, 48 Hours, Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop, Golden Child, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Raw, Coming to America, Harlem Nights, all before he turned 29 years old.
Amazing.
That's why if we're going by power rankings, I had to put Eddie Murphy at the top.
Yes. Oh. He did the sketch show again. He saved Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
He wasn't just on the show. Okay.
Yeah.
He did the stand-up specials. Two of the biggest stand-up specials ever. And then one of them, Raw was played in movie theaters.
Yep.
All those movies, and then even now, like a couple of years ago, he did the Dolomite biography, and it was outstanding. And he played Dolomite, in the movie, and I think it's on Netflix. And even so, he's not making the big hit movies like he used to, but he's still an outstanding comedic actor. And I highly recommend that movie for him and Wesley Snipes is in it. He's hilarious in that movie too. So look, if you look at just whole career, that you look at when he started, again, like 18, 19 years old. And he had that run of movies before he turned 30. And then he did, then he went into family-friendly movies and other things, and it's funny because I don't think he's actually done a stand-up thing in a couple of decades, and
Nope.
People wanted him to come back and do it, and
it's Raw.
Yeah, and he's just like and he's one of those people, like what he did stands on its own, and he doesn't have to come back.
Nope.
And those two comedy specials are timeless. You rank it right up there.
Don't get me started on those two.
What was the big Richard Pryor one that he did?
Sunset Strip.
Yeah,
Live at the Sunset Strip.
Yeah.
Carlin from Carnegie Hall.
Right.
It stands right next to all of those.
Yeah.
Well, you'll get a clean sweep here. Eddie number one for me with a bullet. Eddie's not only my favorite comedian; he's my favorite actor of all time. Delirious is my favorite stand of all time. It's 40 years old this year. It still stands test of time.
Wow.
40 years old. 83 it came out. August 83. Still stands test of time, in my opinion. Obviously, it's dated because of the material, because obviously, but in terms of the impact and just it's still felt. We look my favorite movies of all time. Mostly Eddie Murphy movies. Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2, Coming to America, Golden Child, Trading Places, 48 Hours. I mean, hell, even this 90s stuff gets slept on.
I enjoyed Boomerang.
I love Boomerang. I love Boomerang.
On the hill, the Boomerang was a
Boomerang. Boomerang was a great movie, and it got shit on by movie critics because he made it basically. It was a black centered movie.
Yeah,
the characters and the stories and all of that, and
yeah.
A lot of critics didn't like it because, to be blunt, he didn't. Didn't have any white people in it. Okay,
I think there was one white dude in the whole movie, wasn't there?
Yeah, and that kind of, and it wasn't your typical, comedy with an all black cast. It wasn't like the stuff that Richard Pryor did in the 70s or whatever. It wasn't like it wasn't like that type of movie. And a lot of just movie critics really they didn't know how to take that, and so they crapped on it.
Eddie Murphy is the greatest cast member in SNL history. It's not an argument. I remember when they did the 40th anniversary back in 2015. It was a big debate on social media, on my Facebook, and there were most people agreed with me, but some people will say, well, maybe Adam Sandler was. No. Eddie had that lockstep. Eddie was so big in the 80s that it was hard to sustain that. His 90s work. If his 80s work didn't exist, his 90s work would be huge. Would be bigger. But because he was so big in the 80s, Coming to America was so big in the 80s, Beverly Hills Cop was so big in the 80s, you name it. His 90s work gets a little slept on because of the fact that he was so big. It's hard to sustain that, in terms of like perception, of course. But, Night Professor was great. I love The Strange Gentleman, of course. Boomerang, as you said, is a fantastic movie. Yeah, I mean, Eddie Murphy was arguably the biggest celebrity in the country in the 80s.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mid 80s, yes.
Yeah, it was either Michael Jackson or Eddie Murphy.
Yeah,
you name it.
I mean, like his 80s is like basically like Wilt Chamberlain, like and his 80s stuff was built with the 76ers, and then his 90s stuff was built with the Lakers, where Wilt was quote unquote not as good, but he still did a whole lot of work.
Yeah, you know what we should do one day? We should do a top 10 Eddie Murphy movies ranking. Maybe top 5. I don't know. 10 or 5. I don't know. We want a number. That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we all agree.